newt, toe of frog,
Black cat's bones,
tongue of dog. That'll teach you not to mess with us.
Wait a minute. That is not witchcraft. Witchcraft is always misinterpreted as satanic, devil worship, black magic, cult practices, Hollywood with big noses and broomsticks. But all it really is worshiping Mother Nature and her elements. But what does everyone else think witchcraft is?
Something that has to do with horror. I don't know.
You say witchcraft? Magic.
Something have to do with evil spirit.
Being a Disney fanatic, witchcraft are the villains, the people that cast the spells, the people that make the poison apples.
I think it would be the adoration of the occult, or perhaps the study of the natural as a naturalist approach to religion.
Growing up around witchcraft, goodness, it's very different, but it's way more open, I feel like, and there's a lot of things that most people aren't used to. Like, my friends would come over and they'll be like, you know, animal parts, like, in their living room on the altar.
In my mid-20s, I met a girl, and I started to date her, and I found out that she was Wiccan, and she found out about local meetings where Wiccans can come together and teach each other things and learn about the practice. And so I started to go to these meetings with her. And there I started to learn more, not only about Wiccan, but about many other religions.
I've been around paganism my whole life, but I actually started practicing witchcraft when I was 8 years old. I come from a long line of witches, eight generations that we can count on paper. And when I was 8 years old was when my mom decided that it was time for me to start practicing. I began with tarot, I began learning about the elements, I began learning about the spirits. In my house there was no such thing as there's no such thing as. So I was always around people doing some sort of form of witchcraft.
In high school, I was considered atheist. I didn't consider myself atheist, but other people considered that I was atheist, and they would shame me for that. Oftentimes, people would call me names or not treat me like a human being because I did not believe in their God. I refused to stand up during the Pledge of Allegiance in class, mostly because the term under God was added to the pledge several years after it was originally written, and I did not think that it was right for myself to say that I pledged under God when I don't.
They wouldn't really understand. I would just like have to explain to them like it's a certain type of medicine and stuff like that, and trying to explain to people, especially being so young, trying to explain to them like my mom's a witch, kids would be like, oh, so she rides like broomsticks and she has like a wart on her nose or something like that, and I would just be like, no, she does witchcraft. And sometimes I would get kind of made fun of for it because kids weren't really open to that, and I feel like it wasn't their fault because certain religions I feel like are just so enclosed, and I remember I'd get like made fun of or just be like, oh, so your mom's a witch, she's gonna do a curse on you, whatever. But I loved it.
I grew up in a hippie compound with my mom, and everybody within the compound was very open about their spiritual beliefs. This was the 70s, and people were experimenting with new spiritual beliefs, so my mom fit in there very well. I, however, did not fit in because I had to go to school, and the kids in the schools were pretty cruel back then. I wasn't allowed to play in people's houses because they thought that I was dirty or that I would give their children lice. I'm not quite sure how that ever came from me being pagan, but in their minds it did. And it was rough. I ran away from home when I was 13 because I had a hard time handling it.
Practice of some sort of magic.
I believe the same thing, magic and Salem witch trials. Think of that.
The Salem witch trials always makes me laugh because there were never any witches involved. During that time, the Puritans really hated any form of witchcraft simply because they thought that witches were concubines of Satan. So they would prosecute them as criminals and put them to death. In fact, in Salem, there was no witches, and that's been historically proven.
I think it's the practicing of maybe spiritual and natural practices.
When some people look at a tree, they're just like, oh, that's a tree, it looks like every other tree. But when I look at a tree, I'm just like, that is a beautiful tree that has such a great vibe to it. It probably has so many stories. If it could talk, it could connect to other trees, and they're just there. But not a lot of people could appreciate that. So to be able to appreciate those little things now in life, I feel like it's a lot from the past.
I actually just watched a video about this the other day, that it's not that creepy, because everyone thinks it's satanic and really creepy, but it's just what they believe in, just like other people believe in their gods and stuff like that.
The chances of meeting a witch are actually more common than one may think. Many believe us to be some form of small minority in the world, someone that can be easily spotted in a busy area. Practitioners of nature and magic. And just like any other form of worship, we have our own views of the world. But in the end, we're still human. Alright, camera rolling? Witches ready?
Ready?
Witches, take action.
Eye of newt.
Toe of frog.
Black cat's bones.
And tongue of dog.
But the candles went out.
Ah!
Witches ready?
Eye of newt.
Take action.
Try it again.
3, 2, 1, action.
Candle came out.
Damn it. God.
Green shirt work?
Yeah, I think that might
Yeah.
work.
Okay.
Yeah. Take that
I
pin.
left my only gray shirt I have at my girlfriend's house.
Oh, good.
This could be for record that. Yes, that is really awesome. This for what it is.
Good girl. Good girl. You ready?
Oh, no.
Dang it. That was perfect, too.
Because we dropped it into so much water, it froze the outside to where
I almost lost it when she said the animal part.
Yeah, you did lose it.
Only because my son, at one point in time when he was 17, I said, Michael, can I ask you a question? And he said, yeah. And I said, are you gay? And he goes, what? What would make you think that? And I said, well, you never bring any girls home to meet me. And he goes, and what am I supposed to tell them? Don't look at all the dead animal parts all over the house. My mom's a witch. So I lost it when she said that.
Yeah.
Giggle.
Camera rolling.
No, not yet.
Okay.
All right.
So much water, it froze the outside to where it wasn't melting.
Yeah.
But
That is
Stabby stab.
She said,
oh! That was awesome. It's just
That was awesome.
Camera rolling.
Move the mic.
With Mike?
Yeah, just pick it up and move it away.
It's okay, baby. There you go, Mama.
Oh, now she's comfortable.
There you go, baby. What?
Rolling?
Rolling.
Your spider.
Go away, spider.
Oh, savage.
The string is still there, though. Gag.
The making of.
The making of.
There we go.
There you go. Not behind the scenes.
This is how you make really, really wicked witch's brew.
Camera's rolling.
Witches ready? Ready. 3, 2, 1, action.
I am.
Cut.
Cut.
Devil worship.
Cut.
Black
Just reset.
Black cat's bones. Now, if you could do a filter on it and make it red, like
Yep.
she's stabbing a
You
bloody
just
cauldron,
stab it.
and it's just shooting blood and foam.
There we go. That's zombie, sis.
No, it's awesome.
Witches ready?
Ready.
3, 2, 1, action.
I have nuked.
Can you cut?
Cut.
Alright, okay, witches ready? Ready. Camera rolling.
Camera never stopped.
Oops. It's my fault. As satanic. Devil worship. Devil worship. What?
Restart.
Action.
I have nuked. Toe of a frog. Black cat's bones. And ton of dogs.
Got it.
Are you being a good girl?
Nah.
Baby.
Look at you, you're a movie star.
Here you go. There you go,
Is
Mama.
that what you
Here.
wanted? Is that what you wanted?
Have you just noticed this?